Hello, learning designers. Welcome to the Learning Design Summit. This is the platform where expert practitioners and leaders come together to share their secret sauce so that all of us in the learning design community can learn from it and further our skills and career. I'm very excited today to have with us Gauresh Gaitonde. Now, Gauresh has over 16 years of experience in the L&D domain, and he currently heads the learning and development department for the Neosoft Technologies. That's a company which is into software development. About Gauresh, very interesting guy. He is a coffee connoisseur, likes to drink different types of coffee, and is able to tell the difference. And also one other important and interesting aspect about him is that he is a watch lover. That's right, a wristwatch lover. He's constantly following what is happening in the wristwatch community. When are the auctions happening? What are different companies? What kind of work they do? How are their watches different than anyone else's? And just before this webinar, Gauresh was sharing with me, a recent auction that happened for Rolex and how much a Rolex can cost and how many lovers are there for vintage wristwatches. So, Gauresh, welcome to Learning Design Summit. Very excited to have you on board.
Thank you so much, Aman. It is quite exciting that we are going to be a part of this particular summit, and there are a lot of interesting things that are going to happen. So let me share a few things about me. I'm very fond of content. I'm very fond of details. I mean, that really works out because someone who enjoys watches looks out for these kind of details. When it comes to content, I believe that everything is about learning, but learning is about content. Content sits right at the heart of the learning, and that is why it has so much more importance than anything else. Having said this, there are a lot of things that people need to explore when it comes to engaging bringing in a lot of engagement and ensuring that you are able to get retention within your class. You might be aware of this, that there are challenges where people are not able to focus on things. There are so many distractions these days, right? So people are not able to focus on certain things which are happening around them. So possibly a WhatsApp message or some interesting video can take away that attention. So how do we as learning and development professionals make sure that we have their attention? We are looking out for those eyeballs. We want those eyeballs for ourselves, and we want to feed them content which they will value, and which they will really enjoy as well. So the whole thing is about improving retention with engaging content.
Fantastic, Gorish. I think you have hit the hammer right on the head of the nail. Currently, and I completely agree with you, we live in the world of distractions. And I think there was some research by Microsoft that happened, I think, 1 or 2 years back. I think it was 2016 or 15, where they said that we've beaten the clownfish when it comes to how long we can stay focused on a task, which is now less than, I think, 7 seconds for us humans.
Yes.
So, there we go. And plus, we have the new generation, the YouTube generation of the world, who's now entering the workforce. And you manage such people because software is where the lot of new talent is coming in, a lot of new generation software developers are coming in. And your company, as we were discussing, manages a lot of such millennials in their organization. So, this is where the skills are ready for learning designers to understand how we can create content that engages people. So very excited about this, and I just want to call it out to our community that we have a person who looks at watches very intently. So I can just expect a lot of detailed stuff from you, Gorish. Very excited about this session. So please go ahead and tell us how we can engage our content and improve retention of learning.
All right. Thank you so much. So, Aman, I believe that if you want to create great content, there are two things which are important. The first thing is that you need to engage people with stories. There should be a lot of storytelling inside your classroom or within the module that you're running. And the second thing is if you can bring in a lot of visuals. So these visuals can be real life objects, or it could be certain graphics or videos, whatever it is. If you're able to bring in those visual elements, you will have your learners all focused on you. My entire attempt is to ensure that nobody sleeps in my class. That's it. If I'm able to succeed in doing that, I think it's great content that I have. Now, about my session, people usually attend a program, maybe in order to receive a certificate. They do it because they want to listen to a speaker, possibly a celebrity speaker, or they want to learn something that they don't know. We are going to focus on the third category. So it is about learning what you don't know. And when you have this kind of an audience inside your classroom, what should you do in order to keep them all attentive and all listening to you? So in order to do that, I'm saying that there are three things that are important. Your content needs to be relevant, it needs to be engaging, and it needs to be smart. This particular session that we have, by the end of it, you will be able to blend storytelling with visuals in order to improve the overall learning experience. You'll be able to keep your class engaged using in-class events. And finally, you'll be able to make content smarter than the learner. And I'm going to talk to you about each one of these things and how it really works out. Aman? Aman, are you there? Aman, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Were we able to capture this?
Yes, yes, yes. Of
Okay,
course.
okay, 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 okay. Yeah, so I completed the first bit about the session. Now we can enter the session if you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
so let's go ahead. I would say
Okay.
that we've already started in the session, and
Okay.
let's take it on.
Okay. So I can do this till the end of the slides now.
Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. I think I got it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now let us take a look at the actual session and let us learn a few new things over here. So the three things that I spoke about, the first bit is about making your content relevant. Now, in order to make it relevant, respect the fact that people have diverse backgrounds and they have very unique opinions. This is something which a lot of people tend to miss. They believe that if there is some kind of a learning, people are supposed to embrace that learning. But what happens is that when people come with different backgrounds, they will take some time in order to align with your opinion, align with your learning. And the first thing that you need to do is ensure that you show them relevance. You make sure that they look at your content and they believe that this is something which I believe in, and there is a lot of hope in it. I can learn this particular thing, I can go through this particular module. So the second thing that you do is you tell them a simple story that they can tell others after the program. Your stories need to be that effective. At the same time, they need to be so easy that the person can tell someone else. And finally, give them examples that they can easily reflect upon. So let us take a few examples over here. So the first one that I have is about a race. Now imagine you prepared a kid for a race, and when it's time and he's running, you realize that he's not winning. He's not able to perform that well. So what you do is you believe that winning is important. So you get up and you start running. How does that look like? Do you think that it's the right way to do things? If not, then why is it that you end up doing things for your team members, certain things which they are required to do? And this is basically how I start my delegation workshop. So as you can see, the relevance really comes in because people are able to understand that they have been doing certain things which their team members are supposed to do, and therefore we are saying that delegation demands practice. So when I share this kind of a story, a lot of times this program is run for frontline managers, and it is possible the first time that they are leading a team. They want to be popular, so they tend to show a lot of enthusiasm. They do a lot of things so their team members are impressed. But in turn, what happens is those team members are not getting sufficient opportunities because the manager is doing those things. And so when you place this example in front of them, they realize that it is something which is relevant. Let us take a look at another example over here. So this is about the Indian breakfast. So Indians enjoy a variety of dishes for breakfast. So it could be bread, cereal, fruits, beverages, whatever it is very common out here. But what we really love is a hot breakfast. And so hot breakfast dishes like poha, upma, paratha, all these things, they are quite tasty and they can be made within minutes. However, there is one different dish that we have, and it is called as sabudana khichdi. Now, this is a savory version of something which is called as a tapioca pudding, and it is very different. Why is it different? Is because if you want sabudana khichdi for breakfast, you either soak the sabudana overnight or you get the khichdi from outside. And the same rule applies for leadership development. You cannot develop leaders overnight. It's not like you promoted them and therefore it is time for you to develop those leaders. Instead of that, if you focus on developing your leaders much ahead in time. So let's say if you are planning to make someone a team leader, possibly 6 months from now or a year from now, make sure that their learning journey begins a year before that. And when you do this, when they are sitting in that role, they are very comfortable, they are aware of a lot of things, and this really creates a difference. So when I speak about these things, a lot of leaders, they realize that, oh yes, this is one mistake which possibly I also make, that I don't ask my leaders to get trained a year in advance or maybe 6 months in advance, and then I expect a lot of things from them in terms of people management, task management, when it comes to actually getting things done. So therefore, this particular example, it really resonates with my participants. They really like this because it tells them exactly how leadership development can be managed. Now, let us move on to the second bit, which is about keeping your learners engaged. Now, in order to do that, add curiosity to the learning environment. Introduce planned interruptions and a little bit of humor to gain attention, but be very careful while you're doing that. And finally, utilize props for IRT and interactions for e-learning. So while this seems like a lot of fun, it actually needs a lot of hard work as well. And how do you bring in those elements? I'll just show you a couple of examples, and you'll be able to understand this. So the first bit that I have, there was a class on data analysis. So what I did was that I placed a lot of stuffed toys on the chairs right before people started entering the class. So when they enter the class, they look at these stuffed toys or stuffed animals all around the classroom, and they're wondering why there is a bear sitting right next to them. Some of them even asked me a couple of questions about it, but no, I'm not going to answer those questions. Instead of that, what I do is I just shrug and I say, it's okay. It is just there. I don't know what it is. After a couple of hours, when we have reached that particular point where I have to talk to them about a particular topic, what I do is I bring pull up a slide which says that there are some 20 animals who have escaped the zoo, and the authorities had given a spreadsheet stating locations of hundreds of animals across the globe, and they want the exact location of these 20 animals. So this is where I bring in the concept of VLOOKUP function in Excel. So that it is so easy. You can just show them how to use VLOOKUP, but then you can give them an interesting way for remembering how they can, when is it that they need to use VLOOKUP and how they can use it. So those the steps which are required for teaching VLOOKUP become so easy once we are able to establish this particular exercise. When we are able to tell people that if you want to find something from a huge count of data, you can use the VLOOKUP function, and that really works out. The second example that I have is with regards to an MS Office program. So what I do is while we are in the middle of a class and I'm about to start a topic about password protecting files. So instead of just starting and telling them how do you save files, I bring in a small interruption, and this is funny as well. So I tell them that I just check my messages and I tell them that guys, the person who was supposed to bring in your certificates, that guy got kidnapped, and the certificates are locked with a password, and you need to unlock that password. And how do you do it? There is a clue, or there is a quiz which is available. You need to solve this particular thing, and once you are able to do it, whatever your answer is, that answer should be the password. So they keep trying for a couple of minutes. It just takes them some 5 to 7 minutes to solve this particular thing. And the first person who is able to solve this, we ask them to come forward and just type in that password. And if it opens the file, they have the right answer. And that is pretty much what happens. So what happens? So people feel engaged because of this activity. They are no longer sitting in a zone where they are just listening to the speaker, or they are just doing those exercises and getting bored over there. These are things that they will remember. These are the things which they will be able to recollect. These are the things which they will go out and tell other people. And that is exactly what we want. We want the class to constantly take breaks, pay attention, and then start doing things again. And when you do this, you actually have a very, very enthusiastic class sitting right in front of you. Now, you must be thinking that maybe all these things just work in a classroom environment, but what about e learning? So, I have a class on new hire orientation, and this class happens to be in an online format. So, there is a module in front of people, they just wear their headphones and they are able to interact with that module. Now, what I can do is I can show them the org structure, I can show them the vision and mission statements. But instead of that, what I do is I keep a simple question saying that what is the vision and mission statement for this organization? And right in front of them, there are four options, and they have the choice to go to their intranet site or possibly the public internet site and read that answer and choose the exact option. So those four options, they look very similar, but they can choose one of those options based on what they have researched. At the same time, there is the next slide basically would show them an org chart structure. But instead of just reading that org chart, now what they have to do is they need to pick up names of people and they need to drop. So let's say there's the name of the CEO. They have to pick up that name and drop it in a box that says CEO. If there is a CFO, they have to pick up that box and drop it where it says CFO. And in order to do this, they are encouraged to go to the company intranet site. And when they go over there, they are able to see who's who within the organization. Now, instead of just plainly looking at names right in front of them, they are able to perform certain steps in order to understand who's who within the organization. And they will remember those people in a much better way because they interacted with that particular session. So these are certain interactions that you can introduce when it comes to a new hire orientation session. Now, the third bit which I have is about making content smarter than the learners, and this is extremely important. A lot of time people would lose interest if your content is not smarter than them. If they are able to feel that they are able to understand what is it that you are saying, and it is no longer interesting, people tend to give up on that particular class. You might see them doing a lot of other things, possibly checking their phones or maybe doing something offline, and you don't want that to happen, right? I mean, you want to ensure that your learners are present inside your classroom. You want those eyeballs looking right in front of that screen. They want you to make sure that the content is that interesting. So how do we ensure that this happens? The first thing is place them in a situation which is different from their current scenario. They have a lot of scope to argue with that situation, or maybe they will not trust what is being said because they experienced it differently. Always remember that they come from diverse backgrounds and they have unique opinions. So having said that, put them in a situation where which they are not familiar with. The second thing is about making them experience difficult situations to appreciate learning. So when they face a difficulty level, they tend to be more attracted towards this. And finally, encourage participants to calculate or code or search online, uh, just like how they would do if they were in a real life situation. So we are not trying to test memory when it comes to assessments. What we are really trying to do is we are trying to understand that a situation which they would face somewhere in the near future, and how they need to work with that situation. So most of the time people don't need to use their memory. They might just go online and search a piece of code, or maybe they will just go online and research something, and they'll be able to utilize that knowledge. So why not make it the same way when it comes to the learning environment? Having said this, let me share a couple of examples to talk about these points. Now, I have a very interesting example about a scenario where I want to teach people certain business skills. Now, in order to teach those skills, I can start with a very basic example, and they might ignore that example. So I make it a little interesting for them. I just take them away from the classroom. I take them away from their general environment. And now I should start by saying this, that I don't have a lot of billionaires inside my classroom. And therefore, this example becomes quite interesting. So, what I do is I ask participants to advise a billionaire on how to own a $200 million yacht. And in order to do this, I present a case in front of them. I give them very unique options, and I tell them that they need to understand that this process is not as simple as going and swiping a card. There's a lot of other things, other factors that they need to think about. And so when I do this, participants enter this particular case with a very open mindset because they have not experienced this situation in the past. It's not like they buy $200 yachts every day. So, having said this, they tend to focus a lot more on the lifestyle bit, on the big numbers, and the smart options that they are able to see. They're able to understand that these things are much, much bigger than usually what they are used to. So, having said this, they embrace this new learning related to studying current investments, or it could be in terms of retaining capital, using leverage, or even saving taxes. So, they see a whole new meaning because the numbers have become much, much bigger. And then I bring them back to the class, and that is where I change the slide, and they realize that uh, when they think about this same situation, everything that they learned in during that example, they're able to use the same knowledge for buying a new phone. They're able to use that for buying a vehicle, or they're able to buy property using the same rules that they learned about when they were trying to buy a yacht. And this is what makes a difference. So take people away from their general environment, and that is where they tend to be more eager about that environment. And when they understand things over there, it becomes much simpler for them to translate that knowledge when it comes to their general environment. So this is the first example. Let me talk about a few more. Now, there is a class where I bring in a paper shredder inside my training room, and I ask participants to shred a couple of pages. These pages are filled with images. They have text on it, and I just ask them to take the shredder paper out and then mix it nicely, and they do that. And then I look at another group and I say that, guys, you need to take all these strips and you need to ensure that you restore it so that I have the pages as they were before. So you just need to paste it possibly on another paper or something. Now, nobody attempts to do these things, but everyone smiles, suggesting that it is extremely time consuming and possibly impossible for them. Now, this is where I reveal that this particular example was about rumors, how rumors really work in a real life situation. So they're easy to spread, but they are difficult to stop. And then this brings me to the last example. This is about a lottery. So when I'm teaching a financial acumen class, I'm teaching them about the time value of money. So this brings me to the last example. This is about a lottery. In a financial acumen module that I teach, I talk to them about time value of money. Okay. All right. So my last example is about a lottery. When I teach a financial acumen module, I talk to them about the time value of money. So there is a situation which is presented to them where participants win a lottery, and they are required to choose between one-time lump sum amount or It could be the total amount divided into equal parts, which is paid every year for 15 years. Now, a lot of you who have worked on these kind of things, you will understand that this whole thing is about finding the present value, and it is in terms of annuity. But this particular example, it gives people an option to explore the same kind of learning in an online environment. So what people do is they identify whether this particular question is about present value or is it about future value, and then based on what options they select, they will get a feedback saying yes, this was right because of the following reason, or this was wrong because of the following reasons. The next step, once they give the correct answer and click on the next button, they are able to identify if they need to calculate annuity or perpetuity, and there is again the whole process of them getting feedback in terms of whether they were right or wrong, and why they were right or why they were wrong. The third bit is about identifying the right formula. So there are four formulas which are available. They need to choose one. And now people have the option to just go out and read about it, search whatever they want to do, but they are able to enjoy this particular experience because they are able to interact with the system and they're getting feedback from the system. So they find that the system is not that easy. It is not like it is just telling them whether it was right or wrong. It is allowing them to proceed. And when you give people that opportunity, once they are able to move ahead, they feel like they are moving up, they're rising every time they are listening, every time they're able to interact with this particular module. Then they have to calculate and respond with an exact figure. Now, this again moves them away from the module. They are required to use a calculator or possibly an Excel file, and they are calculating those results. And finally, they're selecting the exact figure based on four options which are available, and then they make the decision between the two payment options. So when they do this, when they are able to work through all these steps, they're actively involved in that particular module. So as you can see, this is not just about your classroom modules, but this also works well when it comes to an e-learning module. So the overall interaction, it helps them to understand the steps involved in making the decision. And when they do this, when they are able to work with all these things, things become much easier for them to learn as well. So once again, the three things that we need to focus on is to ensure that our content is relevant. We need to ensure that the content is engaging. And finally, we need to ensure that the content is smarter than the learner. Thank you so much, Aman. This is what I wanted to present today.
Fantastic, Gauresh. I think what you shared was, is something that all of us can take back home in terms of what we need to do in terms of learning design, and how can we engage participants now, in the virtual way of, delivering our content. Parish, I want to understand from you. You've been doing classroom trainings, you've been doing now virtual sessions. What is the big change that you are seeing in participant behavior by the way of now when the learning is being delivered, virtually?
All right. So the biggest change that has happened is that some 15 years ago, when I used to train a class, people were open to a training program which was 8 hour long or 16-hour long. They were quite comfortable with that. But today, people want things. They want to learn things in a much faster pace, which means that a simple video which is 15-20 minutes, or it could be learning a particular concept within the first 3 minutes, that is something which people value. And therefore it is extremely important for us to give away all those additional resources to people, whatever it is. It's whether it is in terms of definitions or formulas or whatever it is. Give away those things, bring them to your class, get their attention, and give them those aha moments. Give them things that they can use in order to remember. They will be able to recollect it later, and they will be able to retell those experiences to possibly their family and friends as well.
Fantastic, Gorish. Now, one big challenge that's coming in front of all L&D professionals is that while you could take a feedback form and collect level one feedback in terms of how the session was. And since time and eternity, the whole L&D community has been wanting to move forward on that scale and being able to also measure the ROI and the impact on business and things like that. Do you think such measurements or are going to get even more difficult, or there are ways around now in the new normal?
So I personally believe that people want to share their opinion, but the only thing is that you need to make it about them. So when you design a feedback form, let it be in such a way that they know that their feedback is valued. Keep it short. Don't ask them for a lot of comments. Keep it optional when it comes to comments, and ask them questions which really make a difference. So possibly your questions could be about their overall learning. It could be about the presenter. It could be about the content, and I believe that that should be sufficient when it comes to taking feedback at the very first level.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gauresh, for this session, and very, very insightful, very detailed. And you've kept it, I think, very true to who you are, very crisp and clear and to the point. So thank you so much, Gauresh. That was fantastic to have you with us and have you present this material to us.
And thank you so much, Aman. Thank you for this opportunity.
So, Gauresh, at this point, I will call it a cut and we will record till this point.
Okay.
I'll stop recording for now.
Yeah.